Good evening, everybody. Buenas tardes. This is a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Today is February 10th. Hoy es el 10 de febrero 2022. Vamos a empezar en un par de minutos. We'll be starting in just a moment as I look for the right link here in all my screens. All right, thank you. Welcome to our February 10th, 2022 virtual town hall. I want to give thanks to our ASL and Spanish interpreters for being present tonight. Bienvenidos a nuestro teléfono virtual hoy el 10 de febrero 2022. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros, los comisionados del condado de Boulder. We're going to start by selecting language of preference so that we can begin our event. And so all language speakers, you get to choose your choice by clicking on the interpretation globe icon on your Zoom toolbar. And there are also written instructions on the slide. Our ASL interpreter will be on screen tonight throughout this evening's presentation as well. Para la gente quien quiere participar en español, ustedes pueden escoger el globo de interpretación para participar en el idioma de su preferencia. Favor de escoger ahorita su idioma de preferencia mientras que empezamos el teléfono. Please do choose your language of preference as we begin the town hall. And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Claire Levy.
Thank you. And it's my pleasure to start this town hall by reading Boulder County's land acknowledgement. The Board of County Commissioners wishes to acknowledge that all of us in Boulder County live on land within the territories of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute people. We acknowledge the institution that we represent was founded upon the exclusion and attempted erasure of Indigenous peoples and cultures. We acknowledge the American Indian community in Boulder County today, the elders past and present, and future generations.
Thank you. This evening, as commissioners, we will share highlights and accomplishments of 2021, as well as give some insights into our plans for 2022 at Boulder County. And after that, we will be opening a public comment period for any items that do not have their own hearing process on the docket or are not currently in process. Commissioners will have an opportunity to ask any questions per the speaker or respond after all the speakers have presented to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak tonight in our time allotment. We also just want to remind folks that you are invited to, at any time, use the email commissioners@bouldercounty.org to share your ideas and solutions, as well as to ask questions. And we'll be with y'all tonight until 6:30 p.m. Thank you for joining in. And as chair of the Board of County Commissioners, I'll get us going. So 2021. 2021 wasn't exactly what I was expecting. An installation in a virtual setting through the pandemic really into a full year up to an reorganization a couple of weeks ago that was also completed virtually. And 2021 was a time, really, an opportunity to look internally at the organization, and it gave me a chance to learn processes and consider the culture being built inside of the virtual world at our organization. Our staff looked at everything from policies and procedure manuals. In the middle of this global pandemic, we were tackling issues that all organizations dealt with and continue to deal with in some form or another, from virtual, hybrid, in-person, remote work, telework, and so on. And so how did Boulder County as an organization respond? Our IT team did implementation of a Microsoft Teams voice calling, which a lot of us are now familiar with. But the reality is it saved us money, but it also created efficiency for hybrid work. The increase in cybersecurity became real for a lot of us, as we saw around the world, more attacks on servers, networks, and platforms. And so our insurances had to be reconsidered. Knowing staff challenges existed for everybody, it was important for us, and really a huge shout out to our benefits advisory board, who helped guide the review of benefit packages that was extra critical to us as a board to take care of our employees in such a difficult time. And we also took an opportunity to look at the pay equity gaps for women and people of color in our organization. The surge in COVID cases put a hold on in-person plans once again, mid-year last year. And the same supply chain issues and the great evaluation of work have affected our operations as well. And in the midst of all of that, Boulder County was awarded the 2021 Outstanding Cigna Wellbeing Award. We completed a significant amount of work with our Parks and Open Space folks in the Wildfire recovery, with aerial mulching of over 2,000 acres. And that's another example of the multi-agency jurisdiction, the cooperation, the collaboration that continues at Boulder County with our local, state, and federal relationships that build up so much work through grants and funding for a variety of departments to solve problems from gaps within child welfare issues to voter rights protection and access, as well as to rental assistance throughout Boulder County for all of our residents. Another big piece in 2021 was the vaccine equity work that was done in an ongoing pandemic. They really did add on an unexpected, outside of what was already allocated and spent, an extra $1 million to get us to really the amazing update we just got from the Board of Public Health yesterday of 92% of Boulder County residents being in some stage of vaccination. And that work would not happen without the other section of our community that are community partners that include out Boulder County and El Centro Amistad and others who support the work that we do. All that shared, I'm looking forward to 2022, and I'll continue extending engagement to reach community members that are still not connected to Boulder County as an organization, whether through employment opportunities, resources that are needed, or programs that can be helpful to everyday residents to better the outcomes of all 330,000 folks who call Boulder County home. This year, I will be leading one of the working groups into the next phase of community engagement to determine how we will use the $63.3 million allocation of ARPA funding, which is American Rescue Plan Act, state and local funding that Boulder County is receiving. I'll continue working on the Workforce Boulder County Board to address the upskilling, the equitable access to jobs, government contracts, and opportunities for youth to better the economic recovery and outcomes for our community. In the realm of transportation, I'll continue to advocate for safe and more connected uses, multimodal transportation, the Northwest Rail, and leadership with the Highway 287 corridor, both south and northbound. The Executive Advisory Board of Boulder County Fairgrounds is back together after a COVID-19 pause, and we've been doing outreach and are now reviewing master plan options. There are public meetings for folks to get involved and share your thoughts to make this a top tier, environmentally and user-friendly facility. I've joined a couple of our internal technology teams to bring back information to the full board and help inform our decisions. I participate with the Mobility and Access Coalition to ensure that I'm using the lens of folks with disabilities and the decision making in all of our work around policies, amendments, and opportunities. And in 2022, I'll continue leading the consortium of cities to bring voices of elected leaders together regionally to address topics of what we did in last year around housing, community equity, natural disasters, and others that are member chosen, and opportunities to learn and really work together to better our community regionally. This year has been a great opportunity for me to lead conversations on equity and access with our Office of Sustainability, Climate Action and Resilience, with our elections office, with other elected officials and their teams, with our culturally responsive, inclusive advisory committee, the variety of internal teams with criminal justice and community services, and with schools and youth leadership groups around the state. I joined the National Association of Latino elected officials to give Boulder County a new perspective and a new place on the map in representation and leadership to open more doors for all residents, including single moms and teachers and self-employed women, to see themselves in local leadership roles. And after the March 2021 Boulder mass shooting, our staff and a variety of our elected leaders were on the ground and added new workloads, created new expenses, and all of those folks responded. And we've done that again after the Marshall Fire. I will use my previous flood recovery experience to support the long-term recovery group, the organization in work of rebuilding, finding short-term housing, addressing mental health needs, and other long-term management of that recovery. There is so much going on. And what I can tell you is that I'm grateful to Boulder County residents who've given me the opportunity to be here and lead the work. I'm grateful to the staff at Boulder County who clean snow, maintain our facilities, create programs, distribute direct aid, and so much more. I'm honored to work with a fantastic team in Boulder County, and I appreciate you all for being here this evening to learn more about Boulder County. And I appreciate the staff who's behind the scenes helping us come to all of you virtually this evening. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to our Vice Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Marta. And before I start my remarks, because we did start a little bit late this evening, I do want to assure everybody who signed up to speak that we will be able to get to you. We can go over this evening, and apologize for the slightly late start for the evening. So, with our first town hall of the year, it is a good time to really reflect back and also look forward to what's ahead and what we would like to do. Like most elected officials at any level of government, I ran with a lot of big ideas about what I was going to do. But this job is unique in that we three commissioners don't just make policy for Boulder County. We are the CEOs of this government. It's a large and complex organization with a lot of responsibilities, a lot of programs, a lot of services, and you cannot take the helm and know immediately how to work effectively. And you also can't control what is on your plate. And Marta mentioned some of the challenges and surprises that have come along, unexpected things, and I don't need to mention the Marshall Fire because we know that was something that none of us had planned on and is going to change the direction that we go. But I did take some time, and in fact most of the year actually, to really learn about the work that Boulder County does and to learn how to be a good commissioner. And as I look back, a major part of my energies went, aside from what we all do together, making decisions on behalf of Boulder County and the departments, just so that all the employees that we have can do their fantastic work, was really spent with the other entities outside of Boulder County that I am a representative to. I'm the board's delegate to the Denver Regional Council of Governments, which is the transportation planning organization for the Denver metro area. And it allocates all the state and federal transportation fundings. And through that organization, I was able to have some significant input into the greenhouse gas emissions rule for the transportation sector through the comments of Dr. Cog. I spent some time during the 2021 legislative session, in fact, quite a bit of time testifying at the legislature around issues that are important to Boulder County, the people of Boulder County. There were several important pieces of gun safety legislation that were passed and signed into law, and I was pleased to be able to testify and provide support for those bills. I testified on housing policy and funding for affordable housing. We have the first opportunity in decades and decades to really see some significant money in this state for affordable housing. I was able to provide significant input into the shape of the Front Range Passenger Rail District, which hopefully is going to be able to actually bring intercity passenger rail from Fort Collins to Pueblo in the not too distant future. Several important criminal justice reform bills were in front of the legislature that I was able to testify on. Bills dealing with funding for mental health and substance use disorders. And then support for the first really modernizing piece of transportation funding legislation we've had in Colorado, recognizing that as vehicles become more efficient, as we switch to electric vehicles, we're going to have to fund our transportation system differently because it's funded based on gas tax. So Jen, just in terms of the Boulder County work, Marta did a wonderful job of summarizing a lot of the work that we were involved in. I guess I would turn to the decision that we made to create and fund an Office of Racial Equity as a major accomplishment of our board over the last year. All three of us worked very hard on the structure for that office, where to house it, what the work of it should be. And I'm excited that we will be bringing a director for that office on board, and we'll be advancing the work of racial equity within Boulder County through that organization. Marta mentioned the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, as we call it. And we, the three of us, spent a lot of time discussing how to use those funds effectively, how to make sure that we're reflecting the needs of the community and that we have robust community outreach and engagement as we look at how to use that $63.3 million that Marta mentioned. As we go forward on that, I will be the lead commissioner on the housing working group, and I'm really excited to get to work on that over the next several months and see if we can really make a big dent into the housing needs in our county. Just a quick look at some of the highlights of what our departments have done, because there's so much to share, and I don't want to mention some and then exclude others, but you know, it's been really a thrill to get to approve some of the parks and open space land acquisitions over the last year. We've been able to expand the agricultural land that we steward in the Longmont area and around hygiene and points in between. Our community services department is working really hard on expanding the co-responder program, and this is the program that puts mental health professionals alongside law enforcement officers when they're responding to a call. And it is totally in sync with our efforts to not have our jail be the largest provider of mental health services, but to keep people from getting into jail in the first place when what they really need is mental health services. Our Housing and Human Services Department really did an amazing job of pushing out rental assistance during this pandemic and keeping people housed. But turning to 2022, I want to say again, you know, none of us had planned that we were going to spend the next year and several years actually working on recovery from the most destructive wildfire in Colorado history, but that is the job. And in fact, being there to get county residents through tough times is the reason I ran for this position. My piece will be working closely with the residents of unincorporated Boulder County to assure them that their voices are being heard and that their needs will be met. And as part of that work, I'm hoping that we can find some assistance for people who are underinsured. because there are huge gaps between the amount of resources available to rebuild and the cost of rebuilding. And we don't want this process to mean that people that don't have the means are forced out of Boulder County. Housing affordability has been a long-time interest of mine and a long-time area of work. And this is one of those things that I was not able to get started on last year as I really learned the ropes and got my feet under me. But in 2022, I really want to finally be able to dig into policy changes that can allow people with lower incomes to live in Boulder County and afford to stay here if they're already here. And that means looking at our accessory dwelling unit laws, rules. It means looking at whether we can bring in community land trusts to provide affordable home ownership opportunities, providing assistance so that first-time home buyers can actually make competitive offers, and supporting residents of mobile home parks who want to become resident-owned communities. I'll just mention a couple of other areas that I hope that I can have some time to make progress on. And one is the growth in the value of residential property, which is forcing a lot of lower and moderate income residents out of Boulder County as their property taxes go up. It's a complex issue, and it's not within the power of Boulder County to address alone. We will have to work with the legislature to consider some structural changes, but we're not going to be able to do this unless we bring a lot of people to the table and really look at whether there are ways that we can protect people who have been in their homes for a long, long time and whose property tax bills keep going up. Our community planning and permitting department is going to be buried with the work of helping with the rebuilding, but I still hope that there's some time and some bandwidth there to make progress on code revisions. I mentioned ADUs earlier. I think they can be a really important tool in Boulder County to allow more people to live here affordably. I think there are ways, and we've already had some ideas come to us on how to simplify the process so that more residential development can go through with administrative approvals of site plan review. I think we do need to consider whether more short-term rentals can be approved administratively so that they don't have to go through the time-consuming and very costly process of getting county commissioner approval. And then finally, I hope that we're able to get closer to being in a position to close these U.S. Forest Service lands to recreational sport shooting and bring relief to mountain residents, which means providing an alternative place for people to engage in recreational sports shooting. The two other areas that I will just mention quickly is that 2022 is the year in which we should be re-examining our strategic priorities, updating them, looking at whether they're still the right priorities and whether our goals and objectives are still the right ones. I think that will be a really great process for all of us to engage in together. And then lastly, I say with some sadness that another part of our work this year will be successfully onboarding a new chief of staff as we say goodbye to Mchugh, who has served as our chief of staff to the board for many, many years. So that's my quick whirlwind tour of 2021 and what's ahead in 2022. And Matt, tell us what you have in store.
Thanks, Claire, and I apologize for starting late. We will get to everybody who wants to speak. This is my fourth year as a commissioner. Last year was my third year, obviously. And I work a lot on environmental issues, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that right now as soon as I find my list. You know, what goes on in 2021 will be a lot what goes on in 2022. These things take time to work through, and they're long-term issues. For instance, in the climate action place, we work on a ton of issues. People have no idea all the environmental work on climate action that the county does. We work on electric vehicle adoption. I highly recommend them. They're not only environmentally positive, they are quiet and they're fast. We have a Nissan Leaf, and it's those things that they're cheaper to run, quite frankly, because there's 1/10 the parts, and everybody will be driving those in I don't know, 20 years. That's where everybody's going. So we're trying to accelerate that because of air pollution issues. They also worked on the Office of Climate Action, Resilience, and Sustainability, reducing packaging at a source. You know, you go out and buy things, and a lot of times you're stuck with what it's packaged in, and it's plastic. And what they're trying to do is work with local manufacturers to get rid of some of that plastic and those things to make it more sustainable so that you don't have the issues. You know, recycling is reduce, reuse, recycle. This is all about reducing, and Boulder County is being a pioneer on this for our local government. They also promote conservation and solar adoption in houses and businesses. That's been going on a long time with the county. But when you want to make a change to your home, for instance, we put in an electric heat pump a couple of years ago. There's a lot to learn about how you want to do it and what's involved and the costs involved. And the county helped us along with that process, and even had a list of providers we could get bids from to do that. Soil health and local agriculture. People don't think of agriculture in this way a lot of times, but that's where you fix carbon in the soil. And the county helps local farmers do work in that area so that they can become more environmentally sustainable and help with their production and their bottom line. Not last year, but the year before, the county became 100% wind and solar powered for its electricity, leading the way. And now we're working on trying to make that a little bit more resilient in some of the things that we do when we work with Excel on some of the wind energy, for instance, trying to move that more to the solar side. You might have read in the paper recently the Exxon lawsuit. The counties of Boulder, San Miguel, and City of Boulder sued Exxon for knowingly having pollution issues and climate change issues and not addressing that, and it cost us money. And that's what that last lawsuit's about. And we succeeded, our attorneys, they're great attorneys, and the people we're working with, in making sure that court case was heard in local court, in Boulder court, instead of going to federal court, where our chances are much better. So those are the kinds of things we do, the climate action. I'm also at the state level on the policy in the legislative committees for the CC4CA climate, Communities for Climate Action, which is a group that lobbies the state legislature for changes in these areas as well. The county does a ton of great work, but we need the state and federal governments to move, and we push to do that. Open space. A lot of people say, well, you know, you bought a lot of land, why don't you just manage it? Well, we do need to manage it, that's for sure. But the thing is, people sometimes don't realize that this is like putting together a puzzle. And there are these pieces that are harder to fit and to find that you need to keep adding. There's a great example of one we just approved in the Wallace Living Trust. Now, if you drive up out of Lyons towards Allen's Park on Highway 7, and you take a right at the junction there on the Peak to Peak Highway, as you look left, the county has recently purchased 110 acres there that will be permanently without homes there. And the reason that's important is it's bordered on 3 sides by U.S. Forest Service land. So it's that whole block. And there's a rough road that goes through there and connects. And there are other open space properties the county has previously purchased up the way along the ironclad formation you may know about. And it's so critical to put those last pieces in place. The Parks and Open Space Department also does a great job with restoration, like on the St. Vrain River. That's been heavily changed over the time, and they use the flood as an opportunity to start changing that and make it much more natural for the environment and restoring species. And also working on trails. One of the places They're working on a trail now. It's actually restoring it in the Cowwood fire. About half of that fire was on Heil Valley Ranch open space. And the trails there they're working on now, replacing the bridges and everything, and so that they can open it. I think it is early summer. So providing those recreational opportunities. In the meantime, they've kept the trails on the north side of Heil open so people have access. And that's just an example of the many places that there's trail access and recreational access where you can get away with your family and recreate or recreate and recharge your batteries. And so that's open space. It does a ton of good things for us. The other thing I've worked a lot on is wildfire and forest health mitigation. A lot of people don't realize that we do a lot there already. We have the Wildfire Partners Program that works locally with landowners to make their properties more resilient. Parks and Open Space has a crew that works at suppression if there's a fire that breaks out, and they also work on the mitigation side and forest health side when they're not doing the suppression work. And then Parks and Open Space on their land does great work, and a lot of people don't realize that we take the trees that are cut there and mulch them and turn them into heat for the open space building, the transportation yard, and also the jail. So we take that wood and reuse it for that positive thing, and it burns so hot that it burns very cleanly in the burners. We are still working on the Cowwood fire and doing restoration work there. It takes a long time to do that work, and it's expensive work, and so suppression. And so we focus on the thing that's cheaper and actually restores forest health in the mountain areas. And we're putting on a new position I'm really excited about for a so-called fire shed coordinator. And basically they work with all the people and all the parties in our intergovernmental agreement that we signed a few years ago to accelerate the pace and scale of that work. So you restore the forest, make it more resilient, make it easier to fend for firefighters, and have a better chance when there is a fire of being able to put it out before it does a lot of damage. And speaking of damage, the Marshall Fire happened recently. I live in Louisville. I was evacuated. Didn't know if we had a house for about 24 hours. We got lucky, but so many people didn't. Driving through town in Louisville, it's depressing when you see those places. And we're doing what we can as a county to try to get people back on their feet. It's just such a difficult place to be. And so you might have been reading in the paper, we're working on the debris removal. We made an award for a contractor to do that work. Today, we're working with FEMA trying to get all the things covered, including the foundations. We'll see how that goes. It's working with FEMA, it's a challenge, but we're hoping that works out really well for us. And so we're working on that fire recovery. The other thing I might mention is I'm active on the governing board of commissioners and counties working together, acting together, CCAT. And we work on all these state legislative issues, and I work on the natural resource side of that, and I'm the chair of the Wildfire Subcommittee. Because all of these things that we're working on, and we do great work at the county, but we are basically creatures of the state, as they call it. Basically, we're formed by the state. We can only do what they have us let us do. So we're limited in some ways. So what we do is we go to the state legislature and try to remedy that. We try to make improvements where we can have authority to do things. And we try to push the state to do the right thing and be a powerful and strong voice with our legislative delegation there. And I testified on a number of bills in that vein, and also testified at their Pollution Control Commission and the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, where a lot of this activity takes place, and all the protections we need in Boulder County are derived from those bodies. And so we push that as hard as we can. So it's been a really good year in 2021 from the perspective of the environment. Lots of challenges, of course, with COVID and working on it together and working through that. But that's kind of a bright spot for me is the environment. And now we have this big challenge working forward with the Marshall Fire recovery. I'll be working on the rebuilding part of that. And it's just so important to do. And we're thinking when I said we have a fire safety coordinator, we're thinking about how that fits with making communities more resilient to fire, given our experience. So anyway, it's a real honor. You hear that, it sounds trite sometimes, but it is an honor for me to have this job, to represent people who have similar values, and to try to make lives better and protect the environment for people. So with that, I'll wrap up and see if I can run a show. Who takes it from here? Why don't we just do it that way?
Sure. Yep, I'll move forward. Thank you, commissioners, for sharing your highlights of the past year and upcoming goals for 2022, and appreciate the public who's joined us. We will now move to the public comment section of this evening, and we have allotted 30 minutes to give folks an opportunity to speak. We know that we started a little late with technical difficulties, and we're going to respect that time as folks have already shared. Just a reminder that we have ASL and Spanish language interpreters participating this evening. And so if you can speak a little bit slower than you might normally so that everybody has an opportunity to participate. Another reminder that when speakers do get ready to speak, you do need to state your name and your address for the record. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes on the timer, and commissioners will listen to public comments, may ask questions, and will respond to the speakers at the end of the public comment period. If you are on your phone, remember to use *9 to raise your hand or *6 to unmute yourself. And so I am going to move screens here so I can see a list, unless let's see here.
Hi, commissioners. This is Natalie Springett for the record. I believe we have Donna Waters joining us as speaker number 1, and they have been promoted to panelist with us.
Great, thank you. And Natalie, since I've got you on the virtual phone here, should I be looking at the run of show for the list in numerical order, or is there a list that's going to pop up here somewhere?
Yes, there is a list in numerical order on the run of show for this evening.
Great, thank you. We will start our public comment period.
Okay. Now, can you hear me? This is Donna Waters.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, super. I think I won't use the video, just the audio. This is Donna Waters. I live at 57 Fur Lane in Boulder. I'm in Piper Hills. And I have kind of a question / comment regarding property taxes. I just received my notice, and mine went up about 21%. And I asked a few questions about it. What I could gather is that on average, property taxes went up about 17% in Boulder County, not including the mountains, and about 20% on average in the mountains. So it's been quite a big increase. So I looked into what caps might exist on property tax increases, and I learned about the annual levy law, which is a state law that limits increases on what the county alone can collect to 5.5% per year. So then I looked at, okay, what are revenue increases? Are we hitting that 5.5%? And it looks like the increases have been about 5.5% to the county the last couple of years. And then when I looked at the proposed budget, I saw we're looking at probably another 5.5% next year. Now, I realized that only about a quarter of our property taxes go to the county, but when I looked at the other allocations, particularly schools, the schools are the big one, and then water and fire, I could see that they're going up just as steeply. And my concern is that, if we keep seeing these, 5.5% increases each year, that means in 13 years, we're all gonna see property taxes double. So if you're paying $6,000 now, 13 years from now, just plan to pay $12,000, which I think would be unaffordable for most people. So I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit more as to what we might plan to do to further rein in these property tax increases. And I'm wondering if, maybe what we really need to do is to reduce expenditures. Matt Jones had mentioned that, and I wasn't even aware of this, that Boulder County tax funds were used to sue Exxon for greenhouse emissions. And to me, that would be a perfect example of something that really isn't essential. It's not really our purview, or within the scope of county funding to be, taking the Exxon to court, So I'm hoping there's ways that we can trim the budgets and keep housing affordable for those that own homes here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to number 2 on the list, Edward Yagi.
Hi, are my audio and video all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We need to discuss something before I begin. I have timed my remarks for exactly 3 minutes, but your interpreters will not be able to keep up. I know they need us to speak slowly, but if you put a speed limit on speakers, you have to give us more time. So either I get more time or your interpreters get left in the dust today. How do you want to handle this?
Edward, thanks for being here. We are creating more access for residents to participate. So if you can keep as close to that 3-minute time out of respect for the other speakers who are waiting, that would be great.
Well, as I said, I have timed my remarks for exactly 3 minutes, but that involves speaking very quickly. I will simply read my remarks exactly as I prepared them if you will give me more time.
Thank you.
All right. I am Edward Yagi, co-owner of 5th Generation property on Big Owl Road in Allens Park. I am a correspondent with a local newspaper that last year published 2 of my articles on what passes for government in Boulder County. My editor is still on my case for an update, so here are some more sample headlines and intro paragraphs. As before, please tell me which ones you like the most. Triple brownie points to Commissioner Lochamin for her feedback last time that nothing really caught her eye. That's okay. Every great journalist knows that not every winning idea makes it above the fold. Move over, Hollywood. The movie industry has its Razzies. Boulder County gets its Jerkies. Local journalist launches Jerk of the Month Award to recognize a county employee who is, well, being a jerk. The January 2022 award goes to County Attorney Ben Perlman for gratuitously ignoring multiple emails, questioning the county's non-existent ethics policies, although Ben was automatically eligible for this prestigious award for simply having been a commissioner. Celebrations break out when Boulder County's short-term rental license applications thunder into double digits. 2 years, tens of thousands of person hours, and millions of wasted dollars later, only 3 or 4 actual licenses have been issued, but applications are now up to 11. Regarding the 400 years it will now require to license every STR in the county, an insider replied, "The cruelty is the point. So the longer this drags out, the happier we are." Long-standing mystery solved. The link between short-term rental applications and building code non-compliance. Investigative reporter learns that most short-term rental properties are building code non-compliant in some way because every property and building in Boulder County is non-compliant, including the county courthouse. Blame narrows to 200,000 pages of unenforceable land use laws, zoning requirements, building codes, and standalone ordinances that go totally ignored, in part due to a county requirement that everything be written in Sanskrit. Long-term mystery solved. Boulder County's dismal customer service. Investigative reporter learns that county employees can't read or write. Wrong information, moving goalposts, and rampant confusion is traced to county employees keeping records with only handwritten emojis. When asked to comment, county attorney, former commissioner, and January 2022 Jerky winner Ben Perlman did not reply because he was contacted using words. Long-standing mystery solved. Local experts explain the county's hostility to taxpayers. Simple, they say. The Boulder County government has no respect for the truth, no respect for facts, no intelligence, no competence, no honor, no integrity, no shame, no empathy, no brain, and no conscience. Update. Local newspaper editor rejects this article draft for being old news.
Edward,
That's what I got.
I just wanted to give you a heads up. Thank you.
That's what I got. Will each of you now go around and tell me which one you like the most? And if you love them all, just say nothing.
Thank you. And we'll go to number 3 on the list, Marianne Murphy. And just a reminder for folks who are on the phone, if you press *9, that will raise your hand. Press *6 to unmute yourself. And also just a reminder for folks in the queue to state your name and your address for the record. And Marianne, I can see you on the computer. If you're on your Zoom screen, you may have to unmute yourself.
Yay. Can you hear now?
Yes, I can. Well, I heard you for
Can
a
you
moment.
hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am so sorry. I am in the car in the middle of a dark, lonely road where I got stuck. So my name is Marion Murphy, and I live at 916.5 Pine Street, Boulder, Colorado. I will be brief today because my connection is very bad and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to speak respectfully, not representing, but on behalf of all large, small, medium-sized, who do an incredible job in keeping our county one of the premier open space farming areas, probably in many places. And I would like to say that we as a group who would like to advance the farmers' life for better, as they often are forgotten. They're forgotten, the forgotten toiling people who bring us food every single day, whether we buy it directly from them or whether they are it is served through grocery stores and other food outlets. It is important to remember how much they do for us, and it's important to understand that they are not getting all the resources that they need and deserve for their hard work and for the benefit of the food system for all of us. One of the we recently met with Marta Loshamine, who suggested we come and talk tonight, because one idea we have had is to create a advisory board specifically for agriculture, specifically putting the farmer first. We as a community and as commissioners and as leaders understand what really the farmers need. And one of the things they need very much is monetary assistance, which often is only available via grants or gifts. And it is not enough to keep them successful and keep them growing and able to extend their efforts. Specifically, we take incredible care of our land. And that is very important for our open space. The land not used is depleted very quickly. And so when we have farmers who actually restore the soil, restore the land, attempt to use less water, to use agricultural regenerative practices that bring back our environment, it benefits us all. So with that, I thank you for your time. And my
Thank you.
apologies for difficulties.
Thank you. And just a reminder, if folks do have issues with the technology, you can always send in your ideas, solutions, or questions at commissioners@bouldercounty.org as well. But we did hear you, Marianne.
Okay, and I will do that. I've done a poor job of, I've just had so many difficulties in the last 30 minutes. So please forgive me. And
Don't worry. Take care. We're going to
Thank you.
keep moving on here to number 4 on the list, Eric Wallace.
Hello, all. Can you hear me?
Yes. And just a reminder for your name and address, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Eric Wallace, 339 Pratt Street in Longmont. I'm the co-founder and president of Left Hand Brewing Company. I'm the current board chair of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership and a founding member of Prosper Longmont. And Prosper Longmont was formed to advocate for and to help find solutions to create more for purchase, attainable housing for Longmont workers earning between 80 and 120% of annual median income. In November, we asked Longmont City Council to identify the true size of our housing gap. Our local businesses, utilities, hospitals, and the city itself are having ever increasing difficulty in recruiting staff, especially for emergency responders and others who need to be able to respond to work within a limited amount of time. We asked council that they set a goal for the construction or other sourcing of for purchase homes and to identify opportunities to accelerate the availability of housing sufficient to match the supply to the demand within our community. Council then directed a task force be formed to set a goal for creating a specific number of for purchase homes over a specific time period and to address impediments to realizing that goal. Our advocacy and outreach subcommittee is collecting real world examples of housing impacts on local residents and employees of businesses, schools, hospitals, and municipalities. Our lending subcommittee is studying specific tools designed to assist home buyers with lending experts and agencies across the spectrum. And we continue to reach out to numerous community organizations across the spectrum to amplify the message before our public servants and elected officials that housing is the biggest crisis before us and to support them in addressing this crisis. We believe that owning a home is a critical element in building generational wealth and a crucial step in addressing diversity and equity by leveling an historically tilted playing field. We believe that increasing the percentage of people both living and working within Longmont will decrease climate impact by reducing traffic, will improve economic viability by increasing trade for local businesses, attract employers with more stable workforce, secure the future for families who can put down roots, and enhance the viability of public transit by focusing on infill and redevelopment near our urban core and transit hubs. We believe that density is a solution that needs to be embraced. We believe that the growth in our area is not a choice, but a reality because of the desirability of living here. We encourage our neighboring communities to support and lean into our efforts in the knowledge that urban sprawl is unsustainable. Monotype single-family detached developments do not foster diversity. Soaring living costs create more exclusion, and all communities must actively manage their response to the growth in our area rather than foist that growth onto communities to their east, south, and north. This is the most difficult and complex of our collective problems in the long term. We believe that owning a home is a great step forward in addressing local and societal challenges. To contact us at Prosper and to learn more, visit www.prosperlongmont.org. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. We'll move to number 5 on our list, Erin Mchugh.
Hi. Thank you. My name is Erin Mchugh. I'm at 1860 Del Rosa Court. I am a wife and mother of 3, living in Boulder for 10 years, born and raised in Denver. My middle schooler has been suffering through school in your district with a mask on for the last 2 years. She suffers from headaches, anxiety, depression. She is also bullied on a daily basis and has been told to kill herself 3 times now. by other children her age. She's in 6th grade. Even people she considers her friends are becoming more and more crude and mean and rude to her and to each other. Children that she has known since kindergarten that used to be kind. Of course, they're going through puberty and pressures from school, but these children have lost empathy, relatability, connection, sensitivity, and even kindness. Why? Because they cannot see the pain on their friends' faces when they insult them. They aren't picking up social cues and learning how to sense another's feelings. They are also dumbing down. The nation's youth average IQ dropped 22% in 2020, and we don't even know the devastation that we've incurred for this last year. My friends, we must no longer stand by when unelected officials are creating policies that not only are ineffective, but also negatively impact our community's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, let alone the future of our community. The only clear outcome from this entire mandate situation has been suspicion, fear, and tension among our citizens. Even the World Health Organization has stated clearly that they do not recommend masks for children. After Omicron tore through the country, Omicron, which was truly a mild flu that I had and was very easy to get through. What are we afraid of? After it tore through the country, it proves that the masks aren't stopping a thing. What we do know is that they stop us from breathing fresh air. They stop us from connecting and remembering our connection, our humanity. In July, our own governor stated that the emergency is over, and it is not his job to tell Coloradans what to wear on our bodies, nor is it yours. You, commissioners, have an obligation to make this county a safe place to live in. And if you did truly care about our health and safety, then you wouldn't be allowing these 5th-generation cell towers up all over town, interestingly enough. Mayor Hancock of Denver has said that we must start living with COVID. However we regard this virus, we must learn to live with this new reality together, mask-free. Also, regarding the indoor vaccination requirements that are being held up in this county by some businesses, I think that it is despicable that there are actual medical apartheid. There is medical apartheid happening in this free country and in this very blue state, a liberal state. This is not liberty.
Your time is, if you can finish, please.
Yes, 2 more sentences. That we are allowing people, because of their choice and their own medical choices, to limit their spending in our state and in our county, where we are already hurting as entrepreneurs and small business owners. When we limit the income and the sharing of wealth and demand that people be vaccinated in order to participate, then we limit who can enter our business or who can work in our business. We are limiting ourselves and we are limiting our capacity to thrive as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move next to number 6, Mark Millman.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the time to speak tonight, and I definitely can empathize with the mother that just spoke. I will not be repeating what she did, but I spent tonight listening.
Mark, excuse me, if you don't mind, just your name and your address for the record.
I'm sorry. I'm taking off already. My name is Mark Millman. I live at 4080 Greens Place, Longmont, in unincorporated Boulder County. And like I said, I listened tonight to everything that the 3 of you have done over the last year or so, and to represent the implementation of your own ideologies, which are pretty much identical. You guys vote the same almost all the time. But unfortunately, other than the housing crisis, the self-inflicted housing crisis that we are suffering, you're not addressing the issues that affect those of us that live and work in Boulder County every day. Colorado's lost over 43,000 businesses over the last 2 years, with many thousands of those in Boulder County itself. Most of those businesses were family-owned and minority-owned businesses. I've spoken to a lot of those businesses, especially the ones up in the Longmont area. Schools were closed for at least a year, which, as the last speaker said, they lost 22% of their IQ. McKinsey reports say we've lost about a year of their education. And we've had more suicides in Boulder County than we've had COVID deaths of children in the state of Colorado. And we still have a huge adolescent mental health crisis that has been created. From day one, I pointed out through the data, the problems with our long-term care facilities, which our then Boulder County Public Health Director, Executive Director, passed on to Dora and said it was a Dora problem. The majority of deaths in the county are still coming from there. Also, we have a misuse of federal highway transportation funds. The list can go on and on and on. Boulder County Public Health has been setting policy in this county unchecked for the last 2 years. It is their role to actually recommend policy, but not set it. They have other statutory obligations, but the commissioners, you three, have let them run unabated for the last 2 years to cause these problems. Well, my question to you this evening is, after we know that most of what they've done, including the public health orders, including number 7 and 8, that are still in place to this date, were a mistake, why did you three abdicate your responsibility as commissioners and let Boulder County Public Health run the county? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Number 7 is Natalie Newman.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Natalie Newland, 115 High Country Court, Lafayette. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to start my video, but I'll just speak.
Okay.
My name is Natalie Newland. I'm a Boulder County resident. I'm also the mother of a 2-year-old who is also really, really struggling due to Boulder County's mask mandates in daycares. I won't take much of your time, but my ask is simple. Every county around us has either dropped the mask mandates or given their public a swift and reasonable end date for them, while ours is silent. We get no responses from the emails we send to our appointed health officials. We submit comments. We have no idea if and when our toddlers will get to be done with masks that hinder their development and do not stop transmission, as we've seen. Our neighbors all have clarity, but we have deafening silence and no transparency. The science on masks is not different in Boulder County than it is across the state or country. And we elected you and you appointed them. So you are accountable for these answers. And if you don't know, it's time to lean on your public health appointees and actually get us these answers. We need to know where we're headed. The World Health Organization has never recommended masking children under 5 because they're at the highest risk for learning loss and language development issues. Speech therapists alone are reporting over a 300% increase in referrals from pediatricians. Younger children have suffered a 24% cognitive decline and a 22-point IQ loss among infants. This is a combination of the isolation, social distancing, and the universal masking of faces of those around them. Speech literacy and cognitive issues will plague these children for the rest of their lives, limiting their potential for future success. The norm is seeing faces. The burden of proof is on the intervention, and it's time to put pride and politics aside and be intellectually honest about the lack of data supporting masking children, particularly young children like my 2-year-old son. The first goal of medicine and public health policy is first do no harm. Well, the public health policy is doing harm. So we deserve to know that they and you, our elected officials who appointed them, are prioritizing ending this policy as the rest of our community has already done. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move next to number 8 on the list, Tim Thomas.
Tim Thomas, P.O. Box 1077, Boulder, Colorado. Commissioner Leva, it's good to see you again. Commissioner Loshman, thank you for inviting me. And Commissioner Jones, it's the first time I've ever talked to you, so good to speak to you. Thank you. I'm a 29-year resident of Boulder, Colorado. The reason I'm speaking to you is the same reason why I spoke to people at City Council, the priorities that you're going to be setting for the next year. I agree with Mr. Wallace that we in Boulder, in the city of Boulder, need to do our fair share of providing housing. We haven't been doing that. Longmont and the neighboring cities have. We haven't been stepping up to the plate. The largest economic driver in this area is the CU. I'm a graduate of there. Plus, we have our large private corporations and we have the federal labs. We need to step up in order to provide housing. That includes density, that includes height, all of those things. I would like to see you engage with CU Boulder, because there are things that you can do that you don't need the city of Boulder to. We've elected now a progressive majority here in Boulder. They are, for the first time in decades, talking about moving forward with housing. I promise you, there are those of us here in Boulder who are working to do our fair share. We thank Longmont. We thank Louisville. We thank Lafayette for stepping up to the plate and providing housing that we here in the city of Boulder haven't done. And I count myself also. I was involved in politics very much so until about 2008, and I got out. When we had this racial reckoning and everyone, including the county commissioners, talked about how they needed to have diversity as part of everything they did, and the city of Boulder came up with a racial equity plan, I could no longer stand aside. I'm writing columns now. I'm talking to people, as many as I can. This is the first time I'm reaching out to the county commissioners, but I want you to, on specific measures, I would like us to look at the property that Boulder Valley School District owns, that they want to provide for teachers, and not just teachers, it's all the people who work for Boulder Valley School District. I know my time is running short. On Saturday, there's going to be a faculty of color hiring event for Boulder Valley School District. And the questions that are going to come up is, where am I going to live? How far do I have to live? Why won't those people let me build a house over there? I need you to step up. I myself will support you. I myself will push my local elected officials, because a lot of these things are going to take a four-body review. City Council, City of Boulder Planning Board, your group, and also the Planning Board. So I am saying that we have work to do, and we here in Boulder are going to do what we can to help support you. But all these things that we talk about, racial equity and housing, we need to step up to the plate. Lastly, on the wildfire, what can we do? We should pause the construction that we're doing and allow them to have the construction workers they need to build housing. Pause our housing projects. Pause our construction projects to help the people build their houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Number 9 on our list is Tegan Blakey.
My name is Tegan Blakey, 618 Aspen Meadows Road, Nataland. And I'd like to bring your attention this evening to a couple of the issues that mountain residents of Boulder County are facing. And first up, I'd like to follow up on a topic that Commissioner Levy mentioned, which is looking at closing dispersed shooting on Forest Service lands by funding the Boulder Rifle Club expansion. And I speak really with the interests of a lot of my neighbors, as well as those people who come up here to recreate, in asking you to please prioritize the lives and safety of Boulder County residents by funding the expansion of the Boulder Rifle Club here. I won't go into the details because I already know you're aware of them. But I'll just mention this. Our forest to make this possible to close dispersed shooting on our National Forest Service lands. And each year that we do not follow through on what Boulder County needs to do, we are continuing to risk lives needlessly. And I just want to put a few names to some of these people who could have died and who haven't yet. These are my neighbors. These are people who have missed bullets by jumping behind rocks with their children on their own. These are people who have had bullets go into their decks while they've been sitting out on them. There's my neighbor, Colleen, Candace, Eric, Terry, Claire. And I want you to think of people like this as you just decide what Boulder County's priorities are to fund this year. I appreciate that you funded $1 million toward the expansion of the Boulder Rifle Club. but at the rate that we're going, it's the Boulder Rifle Club to be funded. And to me, that is unacceptable, to continue to put lives at risk for 3 years when we have the resources and the policy to make this different. So I ask that you step up to fund this and make it one of your priorities to protect the safety and lives of Boulder County residents. Now, I'd also like to bring your attention to follow up on the settlement agreement that you guys signed with Denver Water in November last year. And since that signing, there has been no information released to the public about how Boulder County will monitor who will be responsible for oversight and enforcing local regulations, and how the mitigation funds are going to be managed. These are really important questions because Denver Water is planning to start construction in less than 60 days. I held an informational meeting for residents last weekend. It was pretty clear that they still have little idea about how things are actually going to work out. They don't have answers to many of the questions, and or they have conflicting answers depending on who you talk to. Some of the things that they are considering is offering their schedule of construction traffic via an app. They're also planning to have their own flaggers to manage construction traffic on county roads. Someone also told me, which I find hard to believe, that when they start logging, they're planning to fly the helicopters down canyon. These are some of the issues that Boulder County really needs to take responsibility for, knowing what's happening. So I'm asking that you seek employment of a new person to be responsible for overseeing this project, for facing with Denver Water when problems emerge, or proactively finding. So thank you for putting your time and resources into looking at these problems and making our lives safer in the mountain communities.
Thank you, Tegan. Number 10 on the list is Claire Tone.
Hi there, my name is Claire Tone. I live at 14153 Gold Hill Road, so I'm also a Western Boulder County mountain resident. I manage a historic horse ranch in the vicinity as well. Adjacent to both properties is Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest land. The horse ranch has been a gateway for horseback riders to explore the trails of Western Boulder County for over 75 years. It's a very unique jewel for the Boulder County area. Equestrian access to safe and sane areas to ride in Western Boulder County is becoming jeopardized on many fronts. One of those is the risk from dispersed recreational shooters. I personally have had a number of very unnerving encounters with recreational shooters on the Switzerland Trail and out my own back door while I've been hiking and horseback riding with my children and students. So I'm thrilled the Recreational Sports Shooting Partnership has continued to make progress. I'm speaking tonight to implore you, the county commissioners, to refocus your attention in 2022 to get this balanced partnership funded and closer to completion by moving forward with the development of a public shooting range near the existing Boulder Rifle Club. Once completed, it can be held up as a rare example of interagency collaboration in Boulder County and really throughout the nation. Counties to our south have moved forward with 2 designated ranges, and it's time for Boulder County to do our part. However, wrapped up into the final plan and budget is the imperative to do it right. 2 very important features need to be budgeted into the completion of this project. Number 1 is noise mitigation, and number 2 is education and enforcement of the changes. The proposed public shooting facility is close to Boulder Valley Ranch, which is another popular open space for equestrians and quiet users of open space. While what I've learned from Gary Sanficon and others who have worked so hard on this measure reassures me about the safety of the proposed public rifle range when it comes to the risk of stray bullets, I'm not as confident about noise impacts. In short, the project needs to budget for state-of-the-art noise mitigation to ensure neighbors and open space users are not impacted by increased shooting density that's sure to take place. And specifically here, I'm focused on safety impacts to horses and riders who are at unique risk from the sound of gunshot fire. Finally, the need for education and enforcement needs to be budgeted into this project for success. Case in point, residents in Western Boulder County have been heavily impacted by an unprecedented surge in off-road vehicle use during and since the pandemic. Much of this has fallen outside the bounds of legal motor vehicle use on national forest. Sadly, I've been told repeatedly by folks at Boulder Ranger District and Boulder County Sheriff's Office that there just simply isn't enough funding or manpower to enforce the rules when it comes to off-highway vehicles in my neighborhood. So therefore, as part of the first shooting partnership, I implore you to include specific funding and manpower measures to ensure new dispersed shooting rules can and will be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our 10 speakers for this evening. And just a reminder that this is an additional time of public comment that we've added into the County Commissioner's schedule. There is also a monthly morning opportunity that can be found on the agenda. So I want to just give commissioners, if there's anything that you wanted to respond to very briefly, because we are now 25 minutes over our initial schedule for staff and for residents.
I'll jump in. First of all, thanks everybody for speaking tonight. Appreciate it. To the masks regulation, we have in Boulder County, we have the health department, the health board make those decisions, so they're not political. If we got involved, that by definition makes them political, and I've been disappointed in other counties where this has been the case. I think these decisions should be made on the current information and data and the science that is available, and that's what the board does. I know we're hearing from people who say don't have the mask requirement any longer. I will guarantee you, if the board decides to go the other direction, they will hear every bit as much that they shouldn't have lifted the mask order, especially in Boulder County. So that's why we do it the way we do. I think it's far better to have, and I think most people in this county agree, that it's far better to have a group of people making these decisions based on science and not on politics. So that's one thing. The property tax question Donna brought up to begin with. Yeah, we abide by the 5.5% limitation. It's in state law, and others don't have to do that. And I think we're very aware of what the property tax is doing to some people. Now, when you get a higher assessment, a higher valuation on your home, that doesn't mean the taxes go up commensurate. There's an assessment involved too. I'm sure you know that. But we abide by that state law with our 5.5% limit. And I'll stop there. There may be others.
Yeah, well, and I'm also want to thank everybody for joining and giving us your comments. We do listen. I've been taking notes on all of them. I also want to thank those who emphasize the problem with affordable housing in Boulder County. It's not a new problem. It's going to be really, really tough to address because land prices are so high here. And so it's going to take density to do it. We're not going to be able to buy single family properties and provide housing effectively. But I think there's tremendous will on the part of a lot of people across a lot of sectors to try to make progress on this. We're going to have to be creative and we are going to have to spend money. There's just no way to do it through market forces. So I'm convinced that we're going to make some progress because people are really bringing it to the attention of elected officials. And as I think it was, let's see, where are my notes? Eric Wallace mentioned it's having an effect on the viability of businesses when you can't find workers. Businesses aren't gonna locate here. And so it really is at a crisis point. I am pleased that some people showed up to urge us to fund the expansion of the Rifle Club. You can imagine that there are others who do not think that we should be spending public funds to provide a shooting range. So, but this is a decision that we have made because we do see that it's the only way that the Forest Service will agree to end sport shooting in the mountains. And if there were another way to do it, that would be my preference. But this is the situation we find ourselves in. I know there were a lot of other comments. I don't want to take time scrolling through my notes here to respond, but we do appreciate all of your participation. I hope that we can respond to each of you who had questions. I did see the question in the chat, and I don't know if the person is or in the Q&A about the subdivision paving situation. And we're going to be looking at a potential ballot measure to put a small mill levy in place so that we can make some progress on that backlog. We're going to put some public opinion polling out in the field, probably in April, and see if there's appetite to pay for that. It's not something that we can absorb out of the county's budget. So we are going to have to get additional tax monies to do it. I believe that it is part of our basic public services that county government should provide. And so I'm committed to taking a close look at that and trying to garner public support for that. So thanks again for being here, and sorry for the late start. I hope we made up for it by going over a little bit.
Thank you. I'll just briefly respond to a couple of the questions. First, by saying thank you to public for being here and participating and coming up with sharing some great ideas and some potential starts to conversations with Boulder County departments and ourselves. I do want to just note on the mask mandate, just for folks who sounded like might not be aware, Boulder County Public Health does have their own meeting on Monday, February 14th. That would be a place to go participate in that conversation. That's where that decision would be made versus here with the commissioners. I appreciate the question on the Gross Dam Reservoir, and we do have an RFP that's out to the question about how are the different mitigation pieces going to be put together, how will that process happen. We have been paying attention to that, so that was a great reminder. If folks feel that there hasn't been communication, I've got a note here to address that, but there is a piece in process. So just that, so folks are aware, that was a very complicated and very difficult decision, and we are going to continue the follow-up. And the note about Denver Water hosting meetings this weekend is important for us to be aware of as well. The other items in general, the other commissioners addressed, and the other one that I didn't hear commented on was Mark's in regards to business. And just two notes that I'm also on the Workforce Boulder County Board, where we are addressing some of the same issues that you brought up, and you may have missed that at the beginning. The other piece is the working group that we mentioned. We're all going to be sponsors of one of the working groups on that $63.3 million allocation of American Rescue Plan funding. I'll be working with the Economic Challenges group, and so some of those questions in business will be working with chambers and other folks who can help address the economic pieces that you alluded to there. So I don't want to take any more time in response to the comments, but thank you again. And just a reminder that you can always send your ideas and solutions and questions to commissioners@bouldercounty.org. You can also, on this final slide for this evening, there is information about the upcoming town halls to participate in. Next month, March 10th, will be Diagonal Makeover. And then on Thursday, April 14th, is a TBD from a topic standpoint. But please do sign up so that you get the email information, advanced agenda, know about other public hearings. You can receive updates from our office about the happenings. Want to, again, give a special appreciation to our interpreters this evening, and also to the county staff who are working late to support continued outreach and engagement opportunities that we've committed to as a board. Thank you all for participating. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting and close us out.
Thank you, everybody.